Hey, and welcome to Caching in the Northwest. This is the podcast from the birthplace of geocaching right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, it's Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific. I'm Chris of the Northwest, and we're going to be talking about geocaches and geocaches and geocachers. Just wanted to let you prove this is a live show from here and all around the globe. So while you're trying to figure out if we are artificial intelligence, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
Oh, that would be a compliment, huh? I'm not sure I have any intelligence, artificial or real, but here we are. It's Thursday night, and we're talking about trip plans, how to make them, why to make them, how to use them, all the ins and outs and ups and downs and details with Sandra from AdventureSmart BC. We're glad you're back.
Thank you for having me back.
And hey, live audience, you know what to do. Jump in the chat. We want to hear from you. You always help make the show better. But first, of course, it's time to bring in our planning primate. Some say he gets his fashion from the lost and found. And others say, like your favorite library book, he's already checked out. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
Oh, hello. Guess I might have been a little checked out there.
Good for you to join us this evening.
I wasn't checking you out. I'm just saying.
I'm checking you out. All right. Only funny to people who've seen Eurovision, the movie. So there you go. Very limited audience for my bizarre humor tonight.
And to both of you.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, that is a good movie. I quite enjoy that. Have any of the people here on our panel seen the Eurovision movie?
I have not.
No.
I don't think I have.
You're all a great disappointment to me this evening, but otherwise, we'll just keep moving
this
along.
evening and always.
That's an encouraging start.
Welcome back,
aboard.
Sandra.
Disappointing.
Disappointed land monkey. Check.
Exactly. All right. Well, before we get into any other kind of disappointments, let's start with a quick reminder that we appreciate the support of our patrons who help to keep this podcast coming each and every week, thanks to Land Sharks, one of our corporate Denali level sponsors. Check out online what their latest deals are at landsharkz.ca. And don't forget to check out their travel as well. It's one of the little links on the website there. And you'll find out what trips are being planned next. In fact, there's one coming up very shortly. But even if you miss that one, there'll be more coming up to enjoy. Check it all out at landsharks.ca. And of course, our other corporate Denali level sponsor. Well, let me tell you who that is. Well, that's Gold Country Geotourism. Visit exploregoldcountry.com. That one I don't think I need to spell out for everybody to learn more about the geotour in the region. And don't forget to download the app and plan your adventure to the geotours in Gold Country this summer. All right. And, you can check them out on Facebook too. It's the same URL, Explore Gold Country. They just like to make things simple for you because they're used to dealing with me. All right. Well, back into the studio here. I'm
biting my tongue right now.
We've got some hashtags for you tonight. Chris, I'll help you save your voice a little bit. I'll read out the hashtags unless you really, really want to.
No, please go ahead.
Okay.
It'll sound so much better in a different voice.
All right. Well, I'm Chris now. I'm Chris of the Northwest. And I want to remind you all that if you would like to participate in tonight's podcast, make sure you use hashtag PLAN, PLAN, to add to tonight's show and ask your questions or give your feedback for us to address with Sandra. And hey, if you've got some non-relevant topics you'd like to talk about, well, we love non-relevance. So use hashtag FTAS. That's hashtag FTAS, which means non-relevance, to bring up any topic in the after show. And of course, hashtag podcast baking. Tell us what you're cooking during the podcast, because we know you are. And if you're also having a little sippy, well, use hashtag podcast drinking, because that's the other hashtag you guys have made up and that we've just adopted. So keep going. All right. There is Sandra's in with the whole group here already.
There you go.
And that's our hashtags.
That's the hashtag. So, hey, we are so thrilled to have Sandra back from AdventureSmart. Every time she's back, we have an action-packed, content-filled show that we just can't hardly seem to fit it all in. So we're going to skip the glow tonight and jump straight to our guest. And I'm going to officially welcome you back to the podcast, Sandra.
Thank you. Officially, unofficially, pre-show, live show. Here we go.
I know.
Yeah, it's good.
Always,
it's good.
Always great to have you. Now, if somebody is new to the podcast, or maybe there's some of us that are getting kind of old and don't remember things. I hear the memory is the second thing to go, and I forget the first. Could you give us a real quick elevator speech? Tell us what AdventureSmart BC is all about and what your role is with them.
So as the director for the AdventureSmart program in British Columbia, we're really quite proud to say that this is where it all started. Almost 2 decades ago, the BC AdventureSmart program began thanks to the BC Search and Rescue Association. That's who created it. They saw a need. They looked for funding. They created an initiative, and boom, AdventureSmart started in 2004. And ever since then, it's been growing, expanding. We've traveled down different paths. We've learned lessons along the way, but the whole focus behind what we do in British Columbia and right across the country, because it did go national in 2009 based on our provincial success. Everywhere you go in Canada, no matter where and how you receive the information, it's consistent, it's reliable, and it's wise outdoor best practices really for all recreationalists so that we can help reduce the number and severity of search and rescue calls in the whole country. British Columbia is unique, and I think I've shared that a few times with you guys. It's good to say it again, friendly reminders, as I call them. We're unique in the sense that we have more search and rescue calls here in the province of British Columbia than everywhere else in the country of Canada. Makes us unique amongst many other reasons why we are. We're an active, healthy province, and we do our best to provide this outdoor education, and I'm glad to be here tonight to share some of that.
Fantastic. Now, Sandra, every time you come, you have such insights into trends that are happening, stats for, hiker safety and even geocachers here in the Pacific Northwest. What do those numbers tell you about BC this year? And are the activities seem to be, I don't know, maybe a higher risk this year than they were last year?
We're really fortunate in British Columbia. We have a team of specialists, if you will. We have a communications manager. We have data administrator, managers. I direct the SAR prevention program. We have critical incident stress management. We have a lot to offer our SAR volunteers and the public. And we're really quite passionate about what we do. And one of those big things we do is we collect all the data from every single search and rescue call that happens in the province. And that's done on a provincial basis. So no matter if you're in Prince George on that search and rescue group, or if you're all the way down in Elkford, which is eastern right-hand corner of British Columbia-ish, every search and rescue group records them in the same database. So it's a provincial system. Long story short, and you guys know I'm great at long stories, is we go in there and we mine all of that information out, and we get to learn who's getting rescued, where are they getting rescued, why are they needing to be rescued, and then there's an opportunity to educate that demographic. As we spring into spring, we know that the hiking season is right around the corner, if not already happening at lower elevations, depending on where you live in Canada. Lots of unique climate happening these days, but there's hiking to be had already. We know hikers are the biggest user group in summer that require call for search and rescue. Just the same note, we know based on that data that during the winter time, the leading user group are snowmobilers, more so in the East Kootenays area, and then a little bit up towards Whistler Pemberton, and then backcountry skiers. So there's a lot of other recreationalists, including geocachers, in and amongst all of that, and many others as well. But the main ones really take up the crutch of search and rescue. So we know coming into the hiking season, they will be dominating, unless something crazy changes. They will be dominating the SAR calls as the user group that will be in need of rescue the most.
Not including paragliders. There's been...
Oh, you saw our Instagram. That's why I know Jay's got eyes. He's always looking to see what's going on.
Oh,
that was an interesting video if you haven't seen it. So anyone who's watching, go over to BC AdventureSmart Instagram. You'll know what Jay and I are talking about. Base jumper decided to go off the Chief in Squamish and crashed into a tree.
Looked like the chute didn't quite open, or it opened, but the cords twisted and he went into a tree.
Yeah, it looked like it, didn't it? And thankfully, so it was in Squamish. So that local search and rescue group is, surprise, surprise, Squamish Search and Rescue. And then that call kind of happened later in the day, which some of them do, a lot of them do. And then night came. Night hoisting with helicopter rescue is unique to North Shore Rescue. They were able to come up the corridor, which doesn't take long in a very fast helicopter. And they were there to give mutual aid to Squamish. So it was a mutual aid call. Squamish Search and Rescue plus North Shore Rescue were able to get that base jumper untangled from the tree and lined out and up and down.
Yeah, that's if like Sandra said, if you haven't seen that video yet, just check out what's your Instagram handle?
So you could BC ADV Smart.
There you go. BCADV Smart. Go check
Correct.
that out, folks.
Yeah.
That's and sub and follow. There's all kinds of great info all year round, and we'll dig into some of that for sure. Were there any more? Did I interrupt, or were you still working through the stats, or do you feel you got that nailed at this point? I didn't want to cut you off if you had more.
No problem. Oh, I've always got numbers. There's numbers always rolling around in my head, through my eyes, out my mouth. So just a few more if that's of interest. I love the numbers, and I think it's really helpful to put numbers to what we do in the province. We're a busy province, as I mentioned. So in British Columbia, we have 78 search and rescue groups. And in those groups, we have 3,400 search and rescue volunteers, also known as unpaid professionals. I'll repeat that one, unpaid professionals who respond to 1,500 search and rescue calls a year in British Columbia. Those are some decent numbers. That's a lot of search and rescue groups that we work closely with. I do as well. And that's a lot of volunteers, 3,400 volunteers. It's a diverse group of highly skilled, highly trained responders from avalanche, swift water, high angle rope rescue, not unlike the base jumper, and cliff to backcountry, front country, urban. The list goes on of their capabilities, so they're a pretty great group. The number I'd like to talk about for a second, and then we can go to the next question whenever you're ready, is the 1,500. So we're quite excited in the short term that we've gone back to pre-pandemic search and rescue call volume. During the pandemic, we were about 2,100 a year through those couple of years. It was busy. But what were we all doing? We were all outside. I know I was. I'm assuming you were too. And we were encouraged to go outside by our health officials. So that number was pretty high. Now we're back to where we were, as we would say. But we've also done lots of study with that data. And the projections are based on some needs analysis reports and that statistic gathering. We'll get back up to that pandemic level shortly in the next little bit, and then it will skyrocket again. So if things stay along the trajectory they are, they'll continue to rise. So it takes all of us to help reduce the number and severity of those calls. And there's a lot at play, though, in there, not just search and rescue data. We're having an increase, I think, in outdoor recreation in general from my intro and life into it 30 years ago. It's changed a lot. And there's so much more involved. Tourism, people are into it, staying with it. It's healthy, mentally, physically.
Yeah,
so
we do get a lot of SAR calls for tourists. I've noticed that. So
there's some out there that need a little help, no question. And we're easily accessible internationally as a destination that's sought after. So there's a little bit of tourism attraction from other parts of the world. Our airport is within spitting distance of trails, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost. I'm exaggerating there if you don't know Vancouver. But nonetheless, an hour and you're on the trail. It's really, if traffic's good, getting through Van.
Depending on the lineup to get your rental car. Yeah.
Yeah, that too. And the bridges. But anyway, I digress. Back to the trails. If you're there pretty quick. You can see them when you land. You can drive to them quickly, and you can be on them in no time. So the accessibility, that was a good example, is great, but it gives people a false sense of security, and it can give tourists a false sense of security as they're not sure how much they need to be prepared, as they might come in at a certain time of the year. Let's say now, lower elevations, crocuses up, daffodils up, tulips up, everything's going, right? Beautiful out there. Gain a little elevation, still winter.
Yeah.
So lots to think about there.
For sure. Lots to think about. All right. Well, every time we have you on, and in fact, even when we don't have you on, we're often reminding our listeners to keep the 3 T's in mind: trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. But tonight, we're going to really focus in on trip planning. But in order to do that, why don't we start with the basics? So, Sandra, what could a trip plan look like?
I'd like everyone to take away tonight that it can come in so many shapes and forms. It's something as easy as using our app, which we'll talk about shortly. It's something as easy as leaving a note on your kitchen counter. It's something as easy as leaving a note in your car. It's something as easy as texting a friend with the details of your adventure. It can be done in many ways, right? It can be done verbally if your friend has a really good memory, but I like things in writing a little bit more. And the end of it all, though, it needs to be done. That's the key. The key is it needs to be done. And again, back to those points I just made, easy access gives us a false sense of security. So sometimes we don't think we need to go to these next levels or steps to do it. But no matter how big or small your adventure is, please file a trip plan with a trusted emergency contact. That's a whole other component to this, which we can expand on. But that you do it is critical. And make sure that as much information is left with that trusted emergency contact as possible. And our app allows you to fill in the fields to do that. We have an AdventureSmart trip plan app. And if you're like, what am I leaving on this? You can listen to me tonight and I'll tell you. Or you can also download the AdventureSmart trip plan app. It's free and it's easy to use. And you just fill in the fields: where you're going, who you're going with, what you're taking with you, your skills, your abilities, your training, certification based, years of experience, mentorship, the color of your clothing, the gear you have with you, the essentials you're carrying, signaling devices, communication devices that you have with you. All these things are key pieces to the investigation, which it technically is, to search and rescue. And then they have all these clues, right? Then they have all these clues, and then they're able to kind of piece this puzzle together and know where you are, know the area of the province or the country, let's say. They would know maybe possibly the park. They would know the trail. They would know your route. They would know your plan A, your plan B, in case plan A ran into a creek that's washed out and trees are down and you have to go to plan B. That's in there. And you're like, oh man, really? I have to think that far ahead? Short answer is yes, you do. And you need to hang out with your friends before and make some nachos and have some drinks and hang out and plan it out. And really just think about, where are we going to go? We're excited to go. Let's make it successful. And we leave all this detail, including your car information, the time you're returning, either that day or whatever the date and time is. And a little window there if you want to say, okay, I'm supposed to be back by 5, but you know what? Sometimes I stop and eat snacks out of my pack. So give me to 5:30. And if I'm not back by 5:30, call me. If I don't answer, if there's anyone else in there in my group to call them. And then I need you to take the next step, and that's to call 911. And that will go to the tasking agency, which is police, municipal, regional, or RCMP in Canada. And they are the tasking agency, and they'll call literally the local search and rescue group to say, hey, Sandra's lost. We're not sure where she is. we've got all this information, and Search and Rescue will start to read that as well and start to look for me.
All right. So that's like the bookends on how a trip plan can save your life there. I think that's good to know. You mentioned the app, the trip plan app. We've talked about that previously when you've been on the podcast. So it is, what I'm hearing is the app is still available for download. What would people search for on their app store to find the app?
AdventureSmart Trip Plan app. Yep, it's super easy to find. The 4 icons we have in our logo, that's what the app looks like. So there's a nice little green tree, there's an orange mountain, there's a lighter blue snowflake and a darker blue wave. And that's the icon and what it looks like. And again, it's free, it's easy to use, and it really, again, if you thought I went into too much detail just a minute ago and you're like, I don't remember half of what Sandra said, if not any of it, the app will allow you to just fill in those fields like I mentioned, and it'll start to get you to think, actually, oh yeah, my car is blue and my license plate is, and da-da-da-da, and you list it all, right? And don't forget about the personal pieces of information. I don't mean personal, but maybe medical personal information. Sandra needs glasses, or my co-snowshoer is on medication or needs medication and has enough with her for the next 4 hours, but what if we're stuck overnight? So it just puts you through the scenarios, and what I'd really like to encourage everyone, if they could, is to really think of something, think of a mistake that might happen. Let's say I broke my ankle, or next time Jay fell and twisted and cut up his elbow, or we got separated, or we got lost. I got sick. I bonked. I didn't eat breakfast. Now I'm flailing behind and I'm faint and dizzy, and now you all have to take care of me and I can't get out. Come up with whatever your scenario is, big or small, and how would you manage it? And that will also put you into another conversation. It's like, whoa, no one in our group has first aid. Okay, maybe we need to think of something else to do here that's not as challenging, but it puts you through the thought process of risk management and how you will engage with risk. Because we can, manage is a strong word. We will have to engage with risk. It could be weather, it could be terrain, it could be someone's footwear, it could be their energy. So how do you engage with risk, and how do you support it by encouraging your group to continue? If it's just a mental block, maybe, as we're getting out there and I'm lagging behind and you all need to encourage me, that's engaging. And there's many other ways that are more extreme. So think about how you will successfully engage with risk.
Wow, that's so much. There's a lot of information there, and there's so much that you could put into a trip plan. I mean, I could spend a weekend just planning a trip. But maybe you're taking a smaller trip, just hike for the afternoon. I think you hit on this already, but do I really need to leave a plan? If I'm just going to go to a short hike, just be gone a couple hours, no big deal.
Yeah, that's what we all say. That's what every single 1,500 of those people said. I'm just going for, I'll see you tonight.
Yeah.
I can't wait for dinner. And so, but that's a great question though, because the reason is a very, very, I promise, short story about a woman who I think we talked about before, but I'll refer to it quickly again. Annette Portraz was a hiker in Coquitlam, which is east of Vancouver, for those who aren't familiar with our province here in the south. And she was out walking some dogs, and she was only going out for the afternoon, if that, a few hours. And a couple of days later, and I'm not exaggerating this time, a couple of days later, she was thankfully found. But what an ordeal. What an ordeal. So it was easy to get to. She just had her dogs with her. It was an afternoon outing. Her mindset was, as you mentioned, I'm just going for a walk with the dogs. So there was a verbal transaction there of the area she was in, but not as much detail as it could have helped her further if more information was left. It was a scary situation. Her dogs were scared. She was scared. It was cold. There was injury. There was cell phone problems. And so it was one of the bigger stories of a hiker, a close to the city hiker that was out there for longer than anyone expected. I know the dogs were digging down into the ground and creating almost a den-like little area to hunker down in. She followed suit to the dogs. She did the same thing. There was a lot to that story. It really shook her up. I know we did some public outreach with her at the Justice Institute of BC. We filled the theater there, and she came up, and the responders came up and shared her perspective and her husband's as he's worried there with search and rescue at base. Search and rescue volunteers shared their story. So yes, no matter how short or long your adventure is, please leave some information with someone. If it's not the app, it doesn't matter to me. As long as you've left something with someone, it will help search and rescue find you faster, which reduces the severity of your incident.
I think you've just given us a great segue to our next question, which is, you're saying just leave something with someone. Well, what if I'm not sure who to leave a trip plan with? Like what kind of options should I be considering?
That is a great question, Jay. And, we all know someone, no matter if it's family, friends, a coworker, a co-volunteer, someone at a community group that you belong to. We all know someone, because I've had this asked us before. Well, I don't have anybody to leave it with. You must know someone. and I don't say it cheekily. I say it heartfelt. We all have someone that we could leave some information with, right? And when you choose that person, I like to choose someone that I've recreated with before, specifically for that activity, but they kind of know how I make decisions. They know how I spend my time out there. If I can push through a challenging trail or on my bike, try to get up that hill a little bit more. They know how I think and how I might engage with risk or try to manage it. And I pick someone who, it can be family, but I like to go just one little bit removed, because family will be extremely worried. There's an emotional attachment. And so I like to pick that someone one step outside of my family. I've some girlfriends that I mountain bike with a lot, and I use one of them and take turns between them when I'm heading out for a ride with others or doing something else. They love me just as much as my family, but they are, and there's emotional attachment there too, but not like your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister.
Sure.
And don't get me wrong, they could do it too, but my point is pick someone strategically, because they have a big role to play. If I'm not back by 5, and our app will notify you as an emergency contact because you're putting in the time, you're asking it to either text or email this contact, so it will notify them. They're like, whoa, Sandra's not back. I'm going to give her a ring, right? So they know what their responsibility is. And this isn't requested of your friend en route to the trail. I give them fair warning. Hopefully I do, at least a few days before, so that they know this is coming up and that they're available, that they're able to take on this responsibility. And then they know what to do if you're not back on time. Just give them a friendly reminder, or lay it out really clearly if this is the first time you're asking them to be this. And then they need to know that if everything has to go into play and action comes to them, the number to call is 911. There's no search and rescue phone number. Their friend who's lost or in trouble will not be charged for search and rescue. And then when they phone 911, it goes to the operator. Hi, Sandra's missing. She's lost. Okay. They will task that out to the local police, and they'll contact the local search and rescue. So that's all taken care of there. But your emergency contact is chosen wisely, strategically, and they play a big role in your success of reaching your destination, which we all know is home.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you've been using your own name as an example a lot, but Wetcoaster wants to add, if Sandra's lost, we're in big trouble. So
it can happen to everyone and anyone. Short story. Okay, I promise this time, really. So I was mountain biking at the end of last summer. We had a really dry, hot summer, and go like this. If I've already told this story, I forget. Just cut me off. I was out riding. It was dry. It was crazy. I was almost out, and I came down this part of the trail that I've been down 1,000 times. It's a little bit technical, but I'm comfortable with it. I've never gone down like a sack of potatoes like that before in my life. I went down so fast, so hard, so quickly, rang my bell, cut my left elbow up to shreds, bleeding profusely, not pretty. Anyway, long story short, someone knew where I was, and everything was good. So I reached my destination with a colorful elbow and 10 stitches later. But it was an adventure that day for sure. So it can happen to anyone. So yes, I do use myself as an example.
Well, we're glad you came through okay. All right, so I've made my trip plan. I'm heading out on my trip. I have chosen wisely who to leave my trip plan with. But let's say now I'm out and I'm having a great time and everything's going well, and I see this as an opportunity that I didn't even think was out there. This is cool. I'm going to change my trip plan midway through my trip. What do I need to think about from a trip plan perspective?
Ideally, we're not going to change it so drastically that would be then a challenge for responders to figure out where you are. I know it can be enticing, or if you're forced to. I don't mean by person, I mean by Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, if a creek is running too high and you can't cross it when you should have, or it sends you east and you wanted to go west. But small changes can be made. You know, if you're in the general area, roughly in that trail system, if you will, that's doable. But if you can reach your emergency contact, you can just let them know you've changed your plan. You know what? I was heading up to Pump Peak and I'm going to change it, and I'm just going to go out to Dog Mountain instead. Again, same mountain, same park, a little bit of a difference in the trail system there. And that would head search and rescue west versus north. So as much information as you can that you can share with your emergency contact, even on the fly, if you have a means of communication. And as we talk about that briefly, and I know we're all about trip planning, but if I could just reference, the means of communication would be through a communications device as your primary means of comms. And that would be a satellite phone, an InReach device, Spot maybe, Zoleo. Those are great examples of those primary comm devices. And your secondary piece is your phone. And I know we all take them. I do. I bet you do. We all do. Pictures. You're looking up stuff. Maybe some maps on there. If you have communication to dial 911 out with your phone, great. Go for it. But don't go in thinking, that's all I need. Please go in thinking, that's my backup. If it works, if it doesn't get too cold, if the battery stays going, if I have reception, those other means are your primaries. It's good, just a little friendly reminder there about communications.
Good deal. Yeah. Let's see. I think you've got a couple of stories. Maybe. Rumor has it. But do you have any examples where a trip plan has, in fact, saved someone's life?
I do. Yes, I do, which was really exciting. And, you know, and for those that go out there and need help and didn't leave a trip plan, this is then the opportunity to learn, right, for next time. And or online, when there's a lot of chatter on social, when people might shame, for lack of a better word. If you know about a form of trip planning, share that in the conversation, or point them in our direction. We're here as that reliable resource in Canada to help you. So, you know, don't feel bad if you didn't know it or you didn't do it, but you've learned along the way. So the story is, there was a recreationalist heading up Indian Arm, which is just east of Mount Seymour Provincial Park. It drops down to the water there. It's a fjord that goes up, and it's a beautiful, beautiful area. And this person got turned around, got a little bit injured, and there was a situation. There was an emergency, and they needed help. They were able to successfully get out and reach their destination, which is home, specifically because of the trip plan they left behind. They left that detailed information with their household, actually, and it was all there to be transferred over to police and to be transferred over to search and rescue. And boom, they knew where to go. They know they needed boat access to start. They knew that the local search and rescue group on one side would be North Shore. On the other side, it could have been Coquitlam, could have been Ridge Meadows. There's different air support from either side of that. So by police and search and rescue knowing that's the region of the province, that this is where the subject is missing and needs help or is hurt, boom, they're like, okay, there's this SAR group, there's that SAR group, there's this helicopter, there's that helicopter. We might have to pull in and do mutual aid with RCM SAR, Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue, to have boat access, or police marine. So it just, I can say it quickly like that, and those are just a few that I know. And you get a SAR manager in there who can see all of that and really put their ducks in order. And it all happens because someone left a trip plan. So that can reduce the time of that call, which is huge, huge. Weather changes at night often, or we all know it gets cold and dark, but do you know how many times we hear subjects say, man, I couldn't believe how dark it got out there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've all seen the night, but maybe not out there, and they're scared and they're anxious and they're cold. So, it's the sooner we can make that call and we successfully have it in a plan, reduces the time, reduces the severity.
And often how fast it got dark.
Yeah. Especially in the trees.
Yeah.
Any geocacher can tell you.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
It's true. It's true.
So speaking of all those kinds of things, and it can get dark fast, and we need to plan ahead and all of that. But let's say somebody forgot to send or leave a trip plan with a friend or family, and we're at the trailhead. We're getting ready for a nice big all-day hike. Probably should have left a trip plan, but they just remember that they forgot. Is there any reasonable next best thing that they could do in that moment that they're like, I've still got cell reception. I'm about to start on this trail. What can I do?
Yeah, there's a few options. I always think there's always an option, right? In the olden days, and I say that as an ex-park ranger, people used to check in, if you will, at little check-in, check-out boxes at trailheads. I know that I think there still might be one at Lynn Headwaters in North Vancouver, which still baffles me because that puts the responsibility down on a park warden to check it, right? So if that's out there, great. I don't think that's really common use anymore. So you're like the scenario you had, you have opportunity. You could at least call someone at that point. Oh man, we're right here at the trailhead. I forgot to leave this with you. We're heading up to Trail ABC. We're going to be back in 6 hours. If we're not, call me. If not, here's Brady's number. Give him a call. And if we're not back by 6:30, 6:45, think that something might be up and we'd like you to start that process. Okay, thanks, bye. Text a friend, trailhead selfie, post it on your Facebook if you want to share where you're going. There's something that you could leave with someone somewhere in that sense. If you're close to your vehicle, don't hesitate to leave a note in your car. Just either put it underneath your floor mat or tucked up there by your gas pedal somewhere. It will be a spot that Search and Rescue will investigate if need be. They will definitely investigate. Okay, here's Sandra's car. She's left it here. Let's see if we can see anything in the window. Okay, we see, looks like there's a little note on there that actually says, I've gone for a hike, A, B, da, 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 da. So they, like I said earlier, they turn into investigators and they contact your friends, your family, maybe your work if necessary. Is this of character? Are they fit? Are they capable? Does she have stuff in her pack to get through the night? Could she stay out there? Does she have medication? What's her vehicle look like? Oh, okay, it's in the parking lot. So it goes into a bit of a retrieval of info. And as much as you can leave, even last minute, leave some information can be helpful.
All right, so the app is great. It walks you through the process, gives you all kinds of stuff. But for example, down here in Washington State, we don't have the app. Are there any other resources? Because we've talked about so many possible pieces of information and so many things to do. You're in a hurry to get out and get going, get hiking, get camping, but it's important to leave it. I don't have the app. Are there any other resources that I can use to help me create the trip plan and make sure that it's got the most important information in it?
Yeah, and I see someone made a great comment here. The Garmin InReach has satellite messaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's opportunity out there, and I can't put a capital P on primary communications devices anymore if you paid me. So really think about that, and it's great to see comments chime in like that because they're aware, they know. Zoleo is another one, and Zoleo actually then connects to your phone if that's doable for you. And it's another awesome, somewhat reasonably priced, because they're all investments really, device. And that allows you to have that communication. And that's another means too, is to share your information and let people know where you're at with those devices. You know, if this is where we choose to go and play, we need to invest literally in gear, tangible pieces, and also training. Certification based if necessary. Avalanche skills training's one for sure for winter, summer, first aid, can't really go without it. And that mentorship, and that could stem over to decision making, and that would lead then to preparation, which would be like, what communication should I take? So a roundabout answer to your question is there's other devices out there that can really help you plan as well. Like the ones mentioned, and communicate, that communication piece. You know, if I could hit the nail on the head a little bit, hopefully I'm reminding your listeners of a few things that they already knew, because I bet you've got awesome audience out there that know a lot. And these are just friendly reminders. Yeah, I know you do. Or if this is an introduction to this, that communications piece is big. It's really big. And taking the time before you go could be really fun and entertaining to each other, and it's exciting to plan normally for most of us, something that's going to be fun to do, even if you all got together virtually, or if you all got together literally. Now we can do that, thankfully. Have fun planning, make that part of your adventure, make the planning the fun part too, because it will help you. Trust me, it will help you have more fun out there. Food planning, route finding, emergency, everything.
There you go. Well, I mean, speaking of folks getting together and having fun and learning, if somebody was interested in participating with BC AdventureSmart, volunteering with BC AdventureSmart, are there any opportunities to join the team?
We are having this spring on March 17th, pardon me, March is gone. Start again, Sandra. On May 17th, we have an outdoor educator training workshop, and that's for any volunteer who wants to join us amongst the other 500 volunteer outdoor educators that we've got just in BC. And this will allow you to hang out with me for a couple hours, and I'll go over our curriculum that we have for the springtime, a couple of programs, our consistent messaging, where do you access our curriculum and how do you use it, social media, how that's applicable in many, many ways, and how do we track all that and use that in your community. And it's a great opportunity. So if you're an outdoor guide, a university student who's involved in outdoor recreation or tourism, if you're a teacher, if you're hospitality, if you're frontline hospitality volunteer or staff, that could be a bartender, waitress, barista, and anyone like social media ambassador, influencer. These are just some examples of, and of course, search and rescue volunteers. You can join us and then hang out with me. We recognize you after the training, and then we set you up with there's nothing you need to create. You use what we create for you. You share our consistent messaging, and off you go. That's May 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. And I believe you shared that event there in the chat. You can learn more there and sign up if you like.
Very cool. Now, that's an opportunity to actually perhaps see if you want to, get a taste of working with the team and see if it's for you, and find out more about joining the BC AdventureSmart team. That's very cool. Now, throughout the year, the BC AdventureSmart team is also like, I've seen you guys out at trailheads with the pop-up tent and everything, and handing out, as Dora Moore says, safety weasels and reflective cards, all kinds of cool stuff. Are there any seminars or events coming up this summer if people want to meet your crew and get some more great tips for adventuring safely and smartly?
There'll be a couple of opportunities that you can join us either virtually or in the field. So we'll start with where you started, Jay, in the field. We have worked closely with industry partners. They are BC Parks, Parks Canada, Metro Vancouver Regional Parks as 3 examples. And the training I was just talking about, I've offered it to them too. So Parks BC and Parks Canada and Metro Van, they've all taken and are taking again training to have their staff and their volunteers set up at those trailheads. Some will have our AdventureSmart tent there, so you'll recognize it right away. And others will be represented by the park or the land manager, but they'll be sharing AdventureSmart messages. They're going to be talking about the 3 T's. They're going to be talking about what to do in an emergency, how to communicate, the communication devices. So a lot of what you heard me talk about tonight, that will be at those trailheads. We'll post that in our events section in the next few weeks. I'm still having to queue all that up and work with them. So that's a lovely scheduling, I won't say nightmare. I love that part of my job. I do. It's really fun, and it's great queuing it up. So I'll let the public know about where they'll be in the near future. And then online, I'll also have about 8 webinars this summer. So we do a winter safety series and a summer safety series. We just wrapped up here our winter safety series. We had 8 wonderful webinars with search and rescue volunteers, a lost hiker, a good Samaritan who helped another hiker. Avalanche Canada joined us. A couple of rescue team members joined us. Lost person behavior again with Dr. Robert Kester, who's an author of Lost Person Behavior. Talked about that. We had Will Gadd join us. Anyway, we had a great winter. We're about to kick off summer again, and I'll post that once I've queued that up as well. But you can go back and check any of our previous summers and winters online and watch on demand. So we have over 30 opportunities for you to watch, from communications and technology, those special events, promotional videos. The longest ones are about an hour and 10. The shortest, I think, is 1 minute. So you can take your pick.
Lots to binge watch.
Absolutely.
Yes, popcorn worthy.
Yeah. Way better than catching up on The Mandalorian or anything. Hey, so we recall, you've mentioned that there's so many partners you do work with, and you support so many of the different search and rescue groups in BC and thereabouts. Are there any links or other materials that you'd like to point our listeners to? Your resources, of course, are fantastic, but is there anything additional that you'd like to put out there for them to look up?
Yeah, we tossed a bunch in the comments tonight, so that's super. So I think most of those go back to the BC Search and Rescue Association's website. So if you're interested in search and rescue in BC, there's a wealth of information in there too. We linked to the outdoor education section there, and we just tossed it in there again. So that's provincial, and that's where I really put a lot of that BC AdventureSmart information. Obviously, BC AdventureSmart on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Lots of fun stuff going on there. And then nationally, of course, AdventureSmart.ca. That's where you'll find all the programs that you can choose. So anyone in Canada can go to the AdventureSmart.ca, go to the programs section, and have a look at what we've offered there. From Hug a Tree and Survive for the kids K to 6, our Survive Outside program, Paddle Smart, Snow Safety Education, Backcountry Safety. You could pick any of those, no matter where you are in Canada, and it will go to the provincial or territorial coordinator. In BC, it comes to me, and we coordinate that for you. And that can be coordinated for you for your classroom, your lunch and learn for work, whatever you like, and evening, daytime. And then we coordinate that for you with one of the volunteer educators. Or we just do it online and we do it virtually. So there's lots of opportunity there. So bcsara.com and adventuresmart.ca and our BC AdventureSmart socials.
Now, maybe this is a good opportunity to plug a little bit of something here as well, Sandra. So, I mean, you mentioned, anywhere in Canada or folks in BC getting those resources, but I think a lot of and that's like if you want to actually engage directly with BC AdventureSmart. But a lot of the material that's available on the website is applicable anywhere in the Pacific Northwest or even beyond.
Absolutely. Oh, I passing BC and Canada around, it's sort of habit. But no matter if you're hiking in the States or really anywhere, literally, we've had guests join us on these webinars because I always ask, as we all do, is where are you sitting? And we've had Africa, Philippines, South America, Spain. And we know it's not the same time as it is here for that, but they're up in the middle of the night. And I'm like, oh. So obviously they have an interest in outdoor recreation. Obviously they do something. Either they already do or are getting into it. And our message applied. It was attractive enough to check us out. It was attractive enough to sign up and then to hang out with us at an odd hour of the day or night. And so you're right, Jay, our message is available and here for everybody, no matter where you are. And it's accessible for you, even through industry. We talk a lot about the public because we're here to help subjects not be subjects. But it's also industry. If there's any industry groups out there that want to learn more, I talk about a few. If it's Avalanche Canada, parks, regional, municipal, Life Saving Society, tourism, Destination BC, or Tourism Canada, or anywhere. I've done some collaboration with Colorado Search and Rescue, and they're really thrilled with what we've been doing with AdventureSmart in British Columbia. And I've had lots of chats with them on seeing how I can help them share what we've done. And they have a busy state. Oh my gosh, they're hopping. So they're definitely looking at expanding their outdoor education. So public available to have that information, and also if anybody has questions, if anybody's industry, that's also an opportunity just to share.
Very cool. We've got a few minutes left in the podcast, and we have had a ton of great comments and questions. Yeah. Maybe we should run through a few of those with Sandra before we wrap up. What do you think, guys?
Yeah.
All right. I'll grab. Oh, there we go. Yeah. I was going to grab that one. Somebody did it for me. Perfect. Keats shares, I think this is feedback to some of your earlier comments about the volume of calls we get in BC Center. And he's saying our backcountry is largely accessible primarily in the North Shore Mountains. And this is largely why SAR is so busy. And I think you talked about that, like an hour from the airport and you're in the mountains. So yeah, for sure.
It's
and
true.
Washington State's very similar.
Similar access. And it's awesome, isn't it? It's awesome for those of us who know what we're doing. It's just as accessible for those who are unaware.
Yeah.
We talk about that awareness and that unawareness. And it's a great point that Keats 94 brings up, because that is the North Shore, which is North Vancouver and West Vancouver, for those that don't know this area who are listening. It's the busiest, one of the busiest areas in Canada for search and rescue. So take the whole country, find the busiest spot, and it's right out my back window. And you look the other way and I see the city lights. So there's 2 million people and a wealth of trails and parks. And you're like, yay, that's great. But you're like, oh my goodness, look at who's coming over. So it's the perfect storm. It's the perfect storm. So your listener makes a true point there. And we know that through data.
They're all coming right through your living room.
Just about. And maybe I could, go ahead. This looks good.
So another one from Wet Coaster. Jim, did you want to read this one?
Sure. He says, at work, we have safety moments at the beginning of meetings. I've been telling people in Toronto about AdventureSmart and that they should be using it for work and after.
Good point. So. Good point. I'm not sure what their work is, but, sometimes depending on where we work, we're encouraged to do something on our lunch break, or we work in an outdoor setting, or we have outings. Or just as a professional development, maybe, or you do something on the side, and maybe you do something in the office all day, but you want to be or interested in being an avid hiker. Yeah. Share and share away. Thank you, because it is national, and no matter if it is or isn't, the information's there to gather, and you can still plan a hike and go hiking in Spain like you can in North Vancouver. And I bet you rescuers in Spain still want you to leave a trip plan. They still want you to have the right training. And I bet you they want you to take specific gear. So
I can almost guarantee it. Yeah.
Yep.
Is it Kitty Quest, right?
Yep.
She says she feels very lucky to have search and rescue groups that we have here in southern BC. And I think she followed up and said, that said, I hope to never have to personally use their services, and I do my best to minimize the odds.
Nice.
Thank you, Catherine.
I'll bet she leaves a trip plan.
She sounds like she does. She sounds like she might. And if not, she will after tonight.
Oh, there you go. My trip plan contact is often my grown daughter. I can leave 1 or 2 target GC codes. That's for geocaching there with her. In addition to things like trail names to help be a little more specific.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Because then that will say these specific coordinates,
right.
By giving the GC code, you're basically saying these specific coordinates on this trail system is where I plan to get to today. And so that would really, I would think, help with the investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably more than most leave. So that's an awesome piece of information. That's what they want. That's what they're trying to get from you when they communicate with you on your phone or your communications device. They're looking for that lat and long. So if your user group is quite versed in that already, and leaving that is super, just great.
Speaking of which, there was a question. Can we jump over to actually first to the GSM times 2 questions? I think that's a good segue here.
Yeah.
No, it's up here. I'm going to grab it. There we go. This one. So for the purposes of the work that the SAR groups or the AdventureSmart, and I know even in the app, there's categories. GSM times 2 is wondering, are geocachers considered hikers, or is there an own special category that Search and Rescue has? I
love that question. And yes, you have your own category. You have your own category in our database. And, you know, I think I know why we do that. Different user groups plan, assess, engage with, manage, and deal with emergencies uniquely. That was very supportive to everyone there. Some do it really well, some maybe not so much. And so when we collect this data, we try to gather as much information as we can based on that user group as one of the fields, as one of the categories that we collect on. So we do. Geocachers are identified. I actually reached out to our data administrator, Dr. Sugden, today, who's a coworker, to say, hey, do you have any quick geocaching stats you can share with me? So maybe this is a time to share it with you. It's pretty short and sweet, actually. Yeah. I said, Nicole, can you tell me what geocachers have been meeting in rescue in the last whatever? So she said 1 in 2020 and 1 in 2018, both in the South, Agassiz and North Vancouver. They were both resolved quickly, less than 5 hours in total incident time. So that's pretty good. And wearing unsuitable clothing for the weather, i.e. jeans, were noticed. One group became lost while the other was overdue because their truck became stuck. So a little summary, little synopsis of some of our data that we've got there specific to geocachers. There you go. We weren't expecting that. You got us. Extra stats.
Can't stop Sandra.
That's a very small percentage, right?
Of calls, but it's also a fairly niche group too, right? So I did think it was interesting though that the one group that one of the calls was on was not properly equipped. So there's future episode on taking the essentials. We'll have to come back for that again. Yeah. Let's grab some more of the stuff here. I think we got a couple more minutes we can work with. Great question from Dora Moore. Sandra, what's the best source of info for weather and snow levels in the local mountains?
Ooh, good one. Let me think about that one. My goodness. That you're even thinking of checking the weather, I give you 10 out of 10. So there's a great start. Not everybody does. We laugh or roll our heads for those that can't see us, but not everyone thinks about it more than maybe looking out the window or checking the basic app on their phone. Getting into that level of detail. So in our Survive Outside program, we talk about weather research. If it's the Weather Channel, your provincial, your regional, checking the hourly precipitation rate, type of precipitation, visibility, and really get into that detail. And a little tidbit there that for every roughly 1,000 meters you gain in elevation, you'll lose approximately 10 degrees. I personally think, from my experience, 10's a little high, but it's a good number to remember, so we'll stick with it. It's going to give you a ballpark, right? When everything's aligned, 1,000 up, 10 degrees down.
I have a rule of thumb that I picked up when I worked for the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, just from observation, which was if it's down in the lower mainland here, if it's 5 Celsius or lower, it's 0 and probably snowing above 1,000 meters or above 800 meters, like where the ski hills are.
I got it. I say the same thing. My kids now are 25 and 22, and they're like, "Mom, you don't have to tell us that if it's 6 degrees down here, yes, we know it's snowing up there." Yeah. But you know what that is, Jay, and you just shared a great example. That's local knowledge. We know that that's local knowledge, and either you get that from a friend, you get mentored with that. Your parents tell you until you're 25, or there's ways to gather this information. Rory just popped something in there, and I wasn't going to forget it either. Avalanche Canada has a wealth of information. So if we think winter, I know we're just coming out of it, but it's still pretty good winter up there right now at higher elevations. So avalanche.ca, and they've got that region specific targeted update, the forecast, the avalanche danger rating, and that will indicate to you when it's safe to go and where it's safe to go and or not. And that all really, really matches and mirrors up to our enthusiasts training. So if you've taken an avalanche skills training, that will read really well to you. If you haven't, it might seem a bit heavy and scientific at times, or hard to understand, actually, or comprehend, I should say. Or you might read between the lines and think it means this, but it means that. So they're scientists at Avalanche Canada, and they do a great job. They are subject matter experts for winter information there and weather. So lots of different places to go and gather, but that you do it as a start, that you do it in as much detail as possible is even better.
There you go.
Sandra, thank you so much for joining us. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you and, to ask you to come and do a lunch and learn or, talk to their group, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I'll say that on behalf of Canada, and the easiest way to do that would be to go to AdventureSmart.ca, go to the programs page, scroll right to the bottom, just pass everything, and it will say request outdoor education. And that will take you, once you start to fill in your fields, let's say you're filling it out in Thunder Bay, Ontario, it will go to that Ontario coordinator. It won't come to me. But if you happen to fill it out anywhere in British Columbia, it will automatically come to me. I'll see where you're requesting it from, who you are, what program you want, how many people you have at this thing, if it's day or night, and I'll set you up for success, and we'll get that going, either face-to-face, if that's what your request is, and you can choose that, or virtual, if that's an option you can entertain. So AdventureSmart.ca in our program section is the easiest way to request. Or if you just need to get a hold of me, DM us on our Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Or if you'd like to email, that's easy too, info@adventuresmartbc.ca.
Fantastic. And listeners, we thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Caching in the Northwest.
We absolutely have. And we're going to go through our closing comments and everything here, but we've had so many great bits of feedback and a bunch of fatas. So stay tuned for the after show as well, folks. And maybe we'll even be able to get Sandra to hang around for a little bit longer and we'll run through a few more of those questions we just didn't have time to get to in the main body of the show, but we'll take, this is important stuff. We'll try and make sure we can get through all these things. But some other important stuff is to thank all of our sponsors. And of course, our Denali level corporate sponsors, that's Landsharks, LANDSHARKZ.ca, and Gold Country Geotourism. That's exploregoldcountry.com. Now, first of all, landsharks.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online. Remember, they're shipping those online orders daily. And for absolutely amazing geocaching adventures and all kinds of outdoor adventures, check out exploregoldcountry.com. And folks, we want to thank all of our faithful Denali level supporters. That's Landsharks, Gold Country Geotourism, Team Squirrel, Groovy Owl, and Cashly, the geocaching app. Waiting for an email back from Nick to see if he'll come on the podcast soon. But folks, if you want to know more about supporting the show, make sure you click that Patreon link on the cashingnw.com a website.
Like Flagman did.
And GSM times 2.
And joining us from Europe, CRS 98.
Kev MacD.
Segehov.
MC3 Cats. Hey, MC3 Cats, thanks for the nice note.
UDAC.
BC Rock Crawler.
Team Noltex.
Ari 54321.
Wet Coaster.
RAR 285.
Kitty Quest.
Green Words.
Drexer.
Can I just whisper from this point on?
Yes.
Okay, Subway Mark.
Just Finding Our Way.
Peach of Washington.
One of our newest, Just Carlo.
J-Car.
Our favorite kitchen appliance, the LG 9000.
B Pendragon.
Logwork.
Antaeus.
Well, I have B Pendragon again.
Well,
Lucky B Pendragon.
Hey, that's
So
right.
nice.
How about the Whidbey Island Gal?
Indeed. And geocaches.
Korsgat.
You Talks to Rocks.
The Camp Clan.
Skyhawker.
Boomer 365.
Good thing Chris didn't get that one, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kid Vegas 19.
What's wrong with Boomer? Oh, Ackerdock.
Limax.
Genies.
Dora Moore.
Gas Station Tuna.
Broncos fan. For life.
Seabeck Tribe.
Hello Brick.
Wino Seattle.
And GeoNav Pro.
Oh, we appreciate all of them and all of you. And we appreciate Sandra. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sandra. I'm going to get through this if I can. Here we go. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Your support keeps the quality shows coming. If you like the show, click the Patreon link on the cashingnw.com website. If you didn't like the show, let us know what you want to talk about. In either case, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and more. Subscribe and give us a review. If you were in a restaurant, you would tip. If you were in a live audience, you would clap. But since you're on a podcast, leave us a free, fast, fabulous, fantastic 5-star review. You can call to 253-693-TFTC and leave us a comment, ask us a question, or help us plan a trip any time of the day or night. And of course, you can email us at feedback@cashingnw.com. Join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show and chat. This show is produced by Chris Umfenauer, Jim Paulwitz, Jay Kennedy, and Brian Lang. This is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2023 by Chris Umfenauer. And folks, I ask you to stay tuned for
The After Show.
You did it, Chris.
Woo.
You can take the rest of the night off.
Okay. There we go.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, we had tons of stuff. Before we get to the podcast drinking and the FATAS, why don't we see if we can finish up the questions for Sandra here while we've got her?
Yeah.
What else did
sounds
we
good.
have? Hashtag plan.
Here's
Here.
one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was the one I was looking at. So Keats has asked if anybody had seen that harrowing rescue of a skier. And I think
Yes.
somebody had said maybe it was a snowboarder that was buried in a tree well. I think that was that up on the
Oh,
North Shore
man.
as well?
That was on Baker. And that
Baker?
was
Oh,
that
okay.
was worthy of seeing. So if anyone's still listening, I forget who comes to the after show or who sticks around or if it just does. Yeah, head over to the BC Search and Rescue Association Facebook, and I'll double check if we got it on Instagram. It was wild. And my goodness, there is a great story of a Good Samaritan. There's a great story of how to avoid that from happening. You know, we piped in with our comments through BC Sora and BC AdventureSmart and always ride with a buddy. in those trees, boarding or skiing, snowshoeing. Just before that happened on Baker, there was an incident on the North Shore. Maybe that's what you're thinking of, Jay. And it was Brad. He was a social friend, and he was snowshoeing, and he was just kind of cruising around, and he kind of went off the trail. Still was open and easy enough to see. And in the spring, it just starts to create a little bit of a different terrain, and it starts to sink here, sink there. Little did he know that underneath there was a huge sinkhole, and he decided to go this way instead of that way. Boom, down 20 feet in no time. And he was by himself, and he had to dig his way out. Anyway, there's the video of that, but the snowboarder was in upside down, completely buried. Skier just happens to see the top of his board and digs him out. He saved his life. Yeah, he saved his life. His lips were blue. They've connected after. They've actually gone skiing and boarding, and everybody's okay. But it was a great reminder of what can happen quickly. And how that can affect you. Tree well. Scary.
Oh.
Wow. Keats wants to know, does the app work for every province in Canada?
Yes. That's the shortest answer you'll get from me tonight.
Okay.
Did you see how I stopped? You're all waiting. Oh, she's going to say something else. Yes.
GSM times 2. He had asked earlier in the show, he commented on the 1,500 search and rescue callouts in the year. He said that equates to more than 4 per day. That seems ridiculously high. And he's asking how big of an area are these calls in?
Yes, and yes. That's all true. That's all. You did the right math, and I didn't do it quickly, but I'm sure your math is correct. And that's gone back down to 1,500 a year. We were 2,100 during the height of COVID. It was incredible. It's incredible all together, really. So take that. That's the summary of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the calls are short and sweet. When I say that, they could be a couple of hours, right?
Right.
Some are a couple of weeks. So the average length of those calls, average out of that 1,500, it's about 6 hours. But most search and rescue calls come in close to sunset. So summertime, that's, let's say 9-ish, just to get a good range.
Yeah.
Winter, 4, right?
Yeah.
The end of whatever your activity is, no matter if it's winter or summer. You might be tired, trying to make your way out or down or get back home. That's when stuff usually goes on. It rarely happens at about 10 a.m. when we have a whole day and light to search and rescue for you to find you. So that's about the length of time. That's usually about 6 hours, but it could be way more. Definitely could be overnight, because different things will be a factor for search and rescue to come in. Their safety then takes priority to look for you.
Right.
So if for some reason they can't get to you, you might have to spend the night. And that's why we talk about taking those essentials with you.
Right. No, good points. And I think just further to, elaborate on GSM times 2's question, it is for the entire province of British Columbia, the average of 4 calls a day. But I think to your earlier point, even though that number, whether it's 1,500 or 2,100 is for the year, is spread out across the entire province, the reality is the majority of those calls are actually happening in the southwest corner of the province.
Yeah, you summed it up. So the majority of them are between spring and summer, early fall. It's going to be the southwest. And the highest call volume areas are North Shore, North Vancouver, West Vancouver, up the Sea to Sky corridor, which takes you past Lions Bay, Squamish, up to Whistler and Pemberton. That's a massively busy area too. So we kind of chunk all of that area together. When we say southwest, we also mean that area and into the valley, right? So that's, let's say, the bottom left corner, if you're looking at a map of BC for summer. Wintertime, head east, stay low, and it's in the East Kootenays. The East Kootenays is an area of British Columbia that has the most winter calls. Most of the calls in the winter are there, and then it pops up to the Sea to Sky corridor, Squamish, Whistler.
A lot of sledding calls.
Usually snowmobilers. Yeah. Snowmobilers are the top on that list for winter. Then it goes to backcountry skiers. So it's easy in BC based on the data, though. for us to say, yeah, that's what happens in the summer and that's what happens in the winter. This is who they are. And we'll do our best to help you whenever we can, 365.
BC Rock Crawler points out that Nanaimo Search and Rescue averages 60 call-outs per year.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot, right? And so Nanaimo SAR will have a variety of different calls over there. Still hikers in the summertime, no question. Maybe some water-based activities just based on their location, right? And their climate on the island is a little bit more forgiving than it is for us over here, or versus even the interior for sure. So activities can be done longer periods of time. Mountain biking starts way earlier probably on the island than it does even over here on the mainland, or up the corridor, or in the interior. Like there's noticeable weeks, if not months, difference based on our climate zones. That allow us to recreate longer based on that weather system. Yeah, it's pretty awesome province for that.
It is. We've got a couple more, and then we'll move on to other things. BC Rock Crawler also points out personal locator beacon is important. Yep. And Keats agrees, spot beacons, definitely consider one.
Yeah. Yep. Those are your primary pieces, right? Those are your primary pieces that you take. Those are guaranteed. That's how I'm going to get out of this, and that's how I might communicate during this. And those are worn and carried accessibly, right?
Right. Yeah. And the plans now are month to month. Yep. So if perhaps you're not a skier, right? You're not going to use it in the winter. You don't have to pay for it during the winter, or vice versa. I'm a skier. I want to use this when I'm skiing. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do much in the summer, that's outside the city. So however you're going to use it, it can be affordable. Don't let the expense stop you from purchasing and using one.
Yeah, it's an investment, like Sandra said earlier.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. In the wintertime, we wear and carry an avalanche transceiver. That's an investment, right? And so these other pieces of devices that we invest in, they're awesome. They're there to help us get around and get home safely, right? So they're great.
Well, the nice thing, I've got a Zoleo, and the nice thing about that is not only is it an emergency device, I can also just use it with the plan if I just want to send a message while I'm out. It doesn't have to only be emergency messages. I can definitely use it, one button, and it's going to send my, to my emergency contacts, going to send my coordinates and, my predefined emergency message. But if I'm just checking in, or, I don't know, want to send a text to somebody for some reason, I can do that through the Zoleo plan. So,
because you could have left the stove on
again. Yes. Yes. I just tossed into our private chat, and maybe Chris, you could toss it into the group chat. There's one of our special events we did last February, not this past, but last 2022. Yeah. And it's all about communications and technology. And it really expands on what we just talked about. That is one of my favorites. I just welcome you and host that one. But there's subject matter experts on there that are eat, breathe, and sleep communications. One of them's from Coquitlam Search and Rescue. The other one's from Galileo Search and Rescue overseas. And the other one's from Sparwood Search and Rescue. That is popcorn worthy, definitely.
Fun. There you go. All right. Well, should we jump to our podcast baking and podcast drinking, just see what everybody was up to?
There was one podcast baking where Starcatcher is doing a small batch of bacon tonight, only 1.5 pounds.
Oh gosh, heaven!
Bacon is meat candy.
That household's gonna smell good for a while.
Yeah.
Fair bit of podcast drinking tonight. I don't know what that says about us, but here you go. Keith says Tuborg, Steamworks, and Parallel 49, all good BC beers except Tuborg. That's Danish. Yeah, that's not a BC beer.
So it's a pastry.
Yeah, there you go. BC Rock Crawler says he's having non-alcoholic homemade punch tonight. Awesome.
Yeah, oh, nice.
Cirrus 98, who is joining us from France today, It says it was coffee this morning, but he was drinking Calvados last night. I'm not sure what Calvados is. I'm gonna have to Google that for me.
It's apparently not coffee.
Yeah,
That's right.
Subway Mark is drinking Pirate Stout by Santiam Brewing. I'm sure if that's an Oregon name, I've mispronounced it.
And if you didn't, we'll tell you you did.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
right.
Somebody will tell you.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll just end with the GSM ×2 hashtag FATAS here. Open question, but folks, send us your feedback for next show. We'd love to hear about it. How many people are going to go for all three of the
Challenge wheel.
the challenge
Wheel of
wheel souvenirs, and try and get the 100 geocaches in 28 days? Yeah, I'm curious who's gonna go for that. Let's hear from folks on that. You're gonna go for it, Chris?
Yep, I'm going to go for it as soon as I get healthy.
Yeah. Get
Yeah.
healthy.
You
Oh.
should.
Land Monkey,
Hmm.
don't let this go to your head, but you did good.
Don't get
Too
coffee
late.
now.
Yeah. It's a good thing it's the end of the show. Calvados is distilled from cider made from specially grown and selected apples from over 200
Huh.
named varieties. Okay,
Sounds
so
good.
Ooh,
it's a distilled apple cider. Nice.
yeah,
That sounds good.
it does.
Johnny Utah Pale Ale. There you go. All right.
All right. Folks, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Until
And hey,
next time.
get your family and get to church this Sunday. Happy Easter. You got to go to church and pick up the umbrella you left at Christmas.
That's right.
I'm sure it's still there.
Probably.
Can't argue with that at all. Folks, until next week, get out and get caching in the Northwest.